Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath, the podcast that explores the movies that influenced how we view love and romantic relationships. Yes, there will be spoilers. I'm your host, Diana Rojek Skonnord. No one possesses you. You're safe with me. We're talking about 1958's Vertigo, Alfred Hitchcock masterpiece, and I am here with producer Ryan, and I'm actually very nervous because this was his choice. And I would like all of this to go on the record just in case something happens to happen to me later. Hi, Ryan.
Hello. I also possess you, safety, etc.
You need to make a good case here.
I mean, you already don't let me take you up in tall buildings in San Francisco. You don't even like going up the hills.
I really don't like those hills.
This movie was made for you.
This movie spoke to me in ways that I didn't want to see on film. You know, with the really cool shots of being up high. And then awkwardness when I don't want to be up high.
Yeah. And the really cool shots of the San Francisco skyline, which I used to get to see before the pandemic. And now I miss. I swear, just seeing Hitchcock's cinematography of Salesforce Tower, it was a thing of beauty.
Mm-hmm. Yes. He really knew what the future was going to look like.
Yeah, and this episode makes me miss Paulina. If you're listening, Paulina, hi, we miss you. Just because you're
I actually saw you in the overshots.
Yes, yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, there she is.
Yeah, awesome.
Right next to the Hitchcock cameo. And yes, we'll definitely be missing your input as a true San Franciscan and also someone who tends to go with these some of the harder subject matter.
Yeah. So, going back to what I was saying, Vertigo was your selection. Mm-hmm. So let me do the basics here. So, according to IMDb, Vertigo describes the film as such: a former police detective juggles wrestling with his personal demons and becoming obsessed with a hauntingly beautiful woman. The person in question is the former police detective in question is played by James Stewart. The woman is played by Kim Novak. If I called her his Girl Friday-esque character...
ex-fiance, awkwardly still friends.
Let's hang on to that for a minute.
Yeah,
fortunately, that's just like the first 10 minutes of the movie. But portrayed by Bel Geddes, Tom Helmore, Raymond Bailey, almost said Raymond Bradley, hello, Henry Jones and Ellen Corby and Konstantin Shayne round out the cast because everyone else further down is given names like priest uncredited, undetermined role uncredited. So I'm just going to stop there.
Spooky nun uncredited.
Not spooky enough.
Yeah.
So this is the part where I also thank anyone who has not seen this movie but still decides to listen to the episodes. If you have not seen this movie, I'm going to put in my very deep recommendation that you go do this now so you can experience it in full and also minimize your confusion.
Yeah, because this podcast always has a spoiler warning, but these aren't like the ordinary everyday spoilers where we mention like whether they stay together or somebody dies at the end. These are like high-octane Hitchcock spoilers.
Mm-hmm. That they actually refer to that in your notes. High-octane. Oh, wait, no, that's your note to go get your oil changed. Never mind.
And we also had a discussion before the show started how much we should try to summarize what goes on in the movie beyond the regular synopsis. And we'll try to fill in the gaps where it's relevant if you've seen it like maybe a while ago. But if we try to explain all the twists and turns of the plot, we agreed we'd be here all day. So
I'm also going to caution you that we might be here all day because there is so much open to interpretation. Mm-hmm. And considering we take the emotional perspective, there's going to be a lot to argue about.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me of the conversation we had recently about Casino Royale, how there's like a whole extra layer of interpretation due to duplicity and like, the one viewing what the character is saying and then the second viewing knowing when they might be lying.
Yeah. If I may point out for this movie and Casino Royale and The Bourne Identity and a lot of movies that you picked, can someone live, please?
Yes, I was also telling Diana I didn't want to get pigeonholed as the guest who always picks movies with people getting shot, and I think this was an improvement, as we agreed. All blunt force trauma deaths in this one. It's only plummeting from buildings, but no gunplay. So.
I mean, in all fairness, for when we covered the Mummy movies, someone did die as well, and you were on that episode. But hooray for the Book of the Dead! All right. Okay. Vertigo.
Yes.
This was your pick. What made you choose this movie?
Well, we wanted to do an episode primarily, and it's not
worst producer ever.
Okay, so this is this is more in the category of just a very good movie that is anchored really, really strongly around the love story. You know, the romance between the two principal characters is not a B plot. Everything kind of hinges on it.
And I will say that not all love stories are, you know, Lifetime. Well, Lifetime goes dark sometimes. Never mind. Hallmark. We'll say Hallmark.
Right.
With Happily Ever After. There is no guaranteed with this. I mean, we could write one if we want, but
well, we'll get into that.
A little late in the narrative, but
yeah. And I saw this movie later in life, but I've still felt a bit of a connection to it. I mean, for one thing, I got turned into a bit of a Hitchcock buff due to this seminar that I took in college. One of those one unit, not like a filler course exactly, but like a fun course where I sat around with about a dozen students and a professor who was really into Hitchcock, and we watched several of his movies and read some short stories and novellas that were his influences. Fun attribute of that class. I was the token male. All the other students and the professor were female, so that was interesting. And also as someone who grew up in the Bay Area and went to several locations from this film, the historically significant locations, I think at least two of them I visited as a kid in grade school.
And one I pointed out to, hey, we were there when we saw that show at the Masonic. We had to go right by it.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I think most of the major locations that you see in the background, we've been to. Let's see. Palace of Fine Arts, the Legion of Honor Art Museum. Mm-hmm. We've been there. Recognize a couple of streets and street corners.
I was going to say Grant Street. I've been on that before, I want to say.
I believe you have, yeah.
Because it was very easy to find. Reference to Coit Tower, which we also have used as a point of just like, are we there yet?
It's very easy to see. Uh-huh. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely on my... for a long time, I've been trying to whittle down a list of like my top movies that take place in San Francisco. So this definitely... It would be hard...
So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Right. The Rock.
The Game.
That's a good one. Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I have this somewhere, but keep going.
Yeah, hard not to put Vertigo on the number one spot on that list, I would say.
Oh, I don't even have it in my top 5 because I just like to be contrary to
Sure. Mrs. Doubtfire, that's another one.
Oh, right. Not on my list.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very difficult to rewatch this movie without going, hey, I've been on one of those things before. It was like historical when we were on it, but back then it was just called a bus. And also a little trivia note there. There is the scene that, in hindsight, makes me realize, this is probably where more inspiration in Birdemic came from, with just long driving sequences.
Birdemic, yes.
But there is, according to the trivia, a scene where Scotty is following Madeline in her car, and it's just driving, and I'm just like, apparently that was like just accurate. Where he started and where he ended up was accurate to how they filmed it. So I'm like, oh, okay, that seemed really long for no good reason, but also really underlined the wandering that they do together.
Right. That's discussed a good bit, right? He's like kind of between jobs by choice. There's that line in the beginning about being of independent means and just wandering full time for a while.
Sure. And
nice work if you can get it.
And the San Francisco construction that they show. Accurate portrayal.
Yes, yeah. There's at least one like road blockade or something was being worked on. I was like, oh wow, yeah.
Just like in real life.
We kept commenting on the lack of traffic and the copious open like street side parking.
Oh, not to mention the fact that going to the Legion of Honor, and I'm just like, she's the only one there.
Yeah,
Did she buy out the whole thing for a day just to not have to sit near people?
But my assumption is that because these characters are like from among the idle rich, that presumably they're going to these touristy spots during the work week when no one else is there.
What do you mean no one else? The rest of the world is coming to it.
Well, I mean, on weekdays, like...
That's when you travel.
Yeah, I know. I mean, yes, realistically, some people would be there, but I imagine it would be most crowded on the weekend.
I do remember going to the Presidio and able to take pictures with not having to do the whole, like, hang on, somebody's behind you. Hang on, somebody's behind you. No, we actually were able to take pictures. But that was in 2002.
Right.
So, oh well.
But yes,
Sorry. We're here, so we're just engulfed in the area, so we can't stop commenting on it. So
yeah,
Vertigo.
I was going to say the whole aimless wandering thing also resonated with me because working in San Francisco, I've had more than a few random lunch hours and stuff where it's like, well, I don't want to go back to the office yet. Let's go in this direction for 30 minutes and see what we see. And yeah, it's a very charming city for that.
Yeah. All right. So Vertigo.
Vertigo.
Please continue. You were in college. Hitchcock. One unit.
Yeah, Vertigo was actually not among the movies that I saw in that class. And in fact, I'm trying to think how many Hitchcock movies I had seen before I took that class either. Because I didn't go into it as like a big Hitchcock fan. It was, I think I was actually mostly just looking for units to fill out my schedule. And it's like, oh, this looks pretty low impact. But I had dabbled in like the, literary theory and film theory stuff before. So it wasn't like completely outside my wheelhouse. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna go go to a class where I get to watch movies, but that definitely made it an easy choice.
Low impact, but lasting impact.
Yeah, I walked out a Hitchcock fan, and I knew that, on his list of movies, Vertigo was probably like the most famous or highest rated that I hadn't seen yet. So it was kind of on my viewing list for a short while after I left that course, and eventually went and sought it out on my own. And I think I made you watch it at the same time. I think we both saw it for the first time during the same viewing.
I want to feel that it's correct to say you saw Vertigo before I did, but we may have watched it together. You would have.
Yeah, you might be right. I might have seen it and then like got you to watch it, like maybe during the same Blockbuster rental or some such thing.
So here's my confession. When I met you, I was a Hitchcock blank canvas. Mm-hmm. Any Hitchcock movie that I've seen, I am fairly certain it's because of you.
How long were you unspoiled on Psycho? I remember that lasting a long time.
I don't know about the So define spoiled, because there's one part of it.
Well,
and then
at least, like everyone knows that, like the.
Hold on. Beep.
Spoiler alert from the 50s coming in again.
Yeah,
like everyone who's heard of movies understands that there's this like mid like second act twist where what appears to be the main character gets killed in the shower and stabbed to death. Now, yes, but because I said it.
No, because
now, yes.
Yeah.
Which was a huge shock at the time, but it's so much like that's just the ship has sailed on that. However, if you talk to people, not everyone is like fully acquainted with the details of what's revealed in the last act. Like if you grill them on exactly who the identity of the killer is, sometimes they'll get that wrong.
Wait a minute.
So yeah,
Statue of Liberty. That was our planet.
Okay.
So
we're not talking about Ghostbusters 2, Diana.
Okay. So I don't know. Some things are just in my in the back of my brain where it's like I start quoting something and I know I can quote it, and I can quote it beautifully in terms of like, getting the inflection right. Mm-hmm. But then it won't occur to me later that, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, that was what that was in reference to. So it's like I know the reference to okay, so usually it comes down to The Simpsons because people will reference Hitchcock. Art will imitate art, and it's not James Stewart who's running up the stairs. It's Principal Skinner running up the stairs.
Right.
Because of what I think it's the episode where he is dating Bart's aunt. But
mm-hmm.
Now to answer your question, I don't think I truly I think I have an image. Oh, no. That was
oh my God.
That was because of Just Shoot Me. Just Shoot Me made fun of Psycho in that way. So
Wait, hang on. They parodied Vertigo in the episode where Skinner was dating Bart's aunt, who has an identical twin. Mm-hmm. Oh wow, that's a whole other level to that.
Maybe, but okay.
Sorry, that just took me by surprise.
See, we can just go down this rabbit hole of just like the Kevin Bacon game, but never touch Kevin Bacon in the whole thing. Okay, so again, episode of Just Shoot Me, that was Psycho, so I think I got that piece of it there. I think Modern Family did something with it recently before I saw Psycho. I don't know. It's a whole thing. So going back to that, I had seen Psycho recently, and yes, it had been spoiled, but I don't know. When it all comes together, it's just like, yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Not with the movie itself, but like what has been out there. Mm-hmm. All right. So that's Psycho. That's Hitchcock. My Hitchcock is very minimal. Every Hitchcock movie I've seen is because you.
Except for Rope.
No, because I wanted to see that.
Did you not? Wait, why did you see Rope?
Because it was Halloween time.
Oh, okay. I thought you guessed it on a podcast about Rope.
No.
Oh, wow. Okay. You guessed on a lot of podcasts.
Thanks.
Make sure to plug them.
Okay.
Okay.
Also,
I get confused sometimes.
Also, check out my recent appearance on the 300 Passions podcast. We talked about Adam's Rib. Okay. Vertigo.
Yes.
Hitchcock.
Uh-huh.
The relationship in this movie, and I should say the relationships in this movie. Mm-hmm. You have the main character obsessed with this woman, as per IMDb says. Walk me through this when you first saw it. What you thought?
Well, I was reacting to it more on a thriller basis than as a romance story, which is interesting because it's you could definitely call this a romantic thriller. I think it's first and foremost a psychological thriller, and it's also very plot dense. The movie invests a lot of screen time and detail into this plot involving Madeline, the wife of Scotty's old college buddy, who is apparently going through some kind of mental illness or is possibly possessed by the ghost of a dead ancestor, and they play around with the ambiguity of like, is this going to turn out to be a supernatural plot, or is it about she's actually crazy, or are we never going to find out for sure? And I guess we'll get separately into where it goes after we learn the truth behind that whole subplot. But even just watching that, it was I mean, I think it resonates because Scotty's attachment to this woman is it grows out of this mystery solving sequence of events. And, it's interesting because he is pretty much stalking her in his capacity as a private detective. But, it's about going to the places that she goes, observing her in these like rather vulnerable moments as she's dealing with something that appears to be powerfully emotional for her. This connection with, the supposed past life. She's going to museums and graveyards and such. And
I don't know if it's a past life, though. I mean, it is an ancestor of hers, but it's also supposedly, planted by her husband to Scotty, a possession.
Right. Which is all, yeah. And yeah, this information is all coming from, okay. I mean, we did the spoiler warning already, right? It's all lies. It's completely being play acted by this woman who's not Madeline at all. So that's why it's so interesting to watch more than once, and it was really fun doing our review for the podcast and looking at it very critically the whole time, thinking that like there's this one version of events that's been constructed inside Scotty's head out of the lies that were told to him by Gavin, that's the husband, and kind of like play acted by Judy, who's pretending to be Madeline, and his feelings for the person he believes to be Madeline are based on this sense of her vulnerability, her fragility, the fact that, she's struggling with this, delusion or possibly supernatural interaction, and that, the entire reason he's following her around in the first place, or at least part of it, is that, like, she might attempt suicide at any moment. And then, of course, she does stage a false suicide attempt in the knowledge that he would be forced to rescue her, which is all part of the plot. But in Scotty's head, it's this, like, I have to, figure out what's going on inside her mind, and I have to protect her from herself or from her own, dark impulses as being motivated by this mental illness / possession / whatever. Mm-hmm. So it's the thriller genre kind of invites the viewer to go along with the main character, and you're very naturally trying to untangle this mystery and out of all the different shades of what could possibly be the true explanation for all of this weird behavior from this troubled woman. You're trying to analyze the clues, and the fact that Scotty's romantic feelings grow out of this obsession. It starts out almost like this intellectual obsession of solving the puzzle and grows into an emotional attachment. It's very easy to empathize with that sense of obsession, because if you're engaging with the movie and if you're enjoying the mystery, you're probably feeling a little bit obsessed yourself, at least for the length of time when you're sitting there getting drawn into the story, getting gripped by the thriller aspects of it. I would be interested to hear if you reacted in a similar way, Diana.
What's difficult is that I can't remember the first time I watched it, and when you mentioned this as a topic for the podcast, I was like, okay, so as I was rewatching it, I'm just like, all right, it's slowly coming together for me. But considering how dense it is with its twists, I was trying to remember, is he seeing the real wife as he's trailing her, or is he, I couldn't remember it, much like Judy has to deal with here. When did Madeline start and when did Judy begin?
Yeah.
And for me, I had to go back to maybe from far away. I was thinking, was it Madeline in the beginning that he was following? No, because they were starting to drop the breadcrumbs early of her possession.
Right, from the very beginning.
From the very, very beginning. And I'm just like, how the hell? Like, is the real wife like in a basement somewhere just waiting?
No, I think they covered that in the... Yeah.
As I'm watching it, because again, I know where this is going. I just can't remember what is what. But I will say the first time I saw this, when... So there's the whole thing at the mission. She's up at the tower, and he can't rescue her in time, so... Right,
this is the culmination of the whole conspiracy, is that they make it look like she committed suicide, and they drop the real wife's body.
Well, the husband does.
The husband does, yeah.
If Judy's story is to be believed afterward, she didn't want to do that anymore. She didn't want to be a part of that, and she ran up to warn him, to scream, or to stop him when she realized she couldn't, because she was in love with Scotty.
Yeah, but the plan did wind up going as it was intended to, and that's when she switched places with the corpse of the real Madeline.
Right. So Scotty is further traumatized, because why wouldn't he be?
Yeah.
And this time, in this beginning trauma, it was a colleague of his that created this vertigo and fear of heights with him. And
a police officer who tried and failed to rescue Scotty from almost falling, and himself fell to his death in the attempt.
I mean, I felt bad because I've seen a lot of action movies, and the way he was trying to help him, I'm like, you're holding on to nothing, and you're going to try to pull him up. You're just, the way you're standing there, you're going to fall. Oh, and he's dead.
Yep.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So what was I getting at? The whole idea of when Judy is reintroduced and she has the red hair. I couldn't, the first time I saw it, I'm like, why is he obsessed with her now? I understood why he was obsessed with the blondes. And he's back in the city after a long period of being in I'm not going to say an institution, but it's basically
it was. Oh, okay. I mean, that's what passed for. It was. I believe it was some like a sanitarium.
Sanitarium. Okay. So he gets
So yeah, so not like committed to an asylum against his will, but it's like it's like a long-term mental health facility. More like a rehab is kind of the modern equivalent, I think.
emotional rehab.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, the medical practices in this particular movie is you need to have some sort of trauma in even numbers.
Yeah, it's a little sketchy. It's they say that only another emotional shock might cure his fear of heights.
Mm-hmm.
Which so it's like I guess as long as he's only seen an even number of people plummet to their deaths, and then tragically he's up to 3 by the end of the movie. So
just like in Gilligan's Island.
Exactly.
And so what I was getting at is just like I didn't see the resemblance of that, even though it was the same actress. I'm just very easily just like, yeah, who's that broad? I mean, he's obsessed with every other blonde. What's up with this chick right here?
Right. Like, I think there are a few other scenes where he sees someone who bears like a passing resemblance to Madeline in the distance, maybe like wearing a similar suit. And like in the long shot, it's the character's played by Kim Novak. And then like the woman like moves a bit closer to the camera and it's swapped out for like, oh, he sees it. It's not actually her.
And then she's replaced by Barbara Novak.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So again, that was my impression, the first time I saw it. But like I said, this time around, like you said, on multiple watches, it's more of an opportunity to just kind of analyze and just kind of pinpoint these things and really look at the emotional states. So you talked about Casino Royale, and that is an excellent parallel because it's just like she has this information happening, behind the scenes that were slow. Well, in Casino Royale, it's just kind of dropped, and that's why I had a problem with it. For here, you're getting like implied flashbacks to give you the information that shows like that's what she did.
Yeah, the way they roll out the reveal is kind of interesting. That we get one scene with Judy not in her alter ego, where we're sort of in suspense as to like, is this just Kim Novak playing a second character who happens to look so much like Madeline that it's the same actress playing 2 characters? And then after that one first scene, we get the flashback showing that no, she was the same woman who was impersonating Madeline all along. And then we get this letter writing scene where she kind of like explains her motivations in a confession letter, which she winds up not sending.
So I've now seen this movie twice. The second time very, very recently. In the letter, she confesses to be a part of it. Does she also confess to being his mistress?
I want to say that came out later, I think. Okay. In the church tower, in the bell tower.
Well, see, came out later, or something that he accused her of.
Right.
And she,
I think she confirmed. There was a lot of information.
I was about to say
going back and forth.
But see,
those 2 scenes.
that's why I was cross. So I was looking through trivia, of course, and I don't know, like, because there is apparently a book that's not canon, but it retells the story from her perspective.
Oh, really?
That she wasn't his mistress, but it's not canon. And so I'm just like, well, wait, now I don't remember what's according to the movie. But then again, once again, I'm able to do this, with Casino Royale, where drop these little pieces from a alternate source. And is it confirmed? Is it not confirmed? And so for a while I was thinking like, but was she tricked into after I saw it the first time and then we were in the middle of watching it the second time, I thought like, did he pay her off or something?
Yeah, that was established. She was paid, right?
Well, he also said like, let me guess, he took all the money, because I think if she was the mistress.
But I thought she agreed. She like confirmed. She confirmed his suspicions in that scene.
What I'm getting at is if it is the case, and she did this for the thought of having a future with him, versus like she gets the money afterwards, it's still not great. But
and keep the necklace, which
I don't remember seeing her wear the necklace as Madeline, so. If that necklace was just...
when did that happen? Yeah,
I don't know. And that's another thing. I'm just like, okay, the necklace was in the painting, sure, but she didn't take it out of the painting and with her ghost powers and put it on her neck, or did she?
I'm trying to remember if there was a scene of Madeline wearing the necklace, and that was like along with visiting the grave and everything, and that was because she bought a bouquet of flowers that looked just like the one that Carlotta being the supposed ghost, the same bouquet of flowers that Carlotta liked,
but the actual relative.
Yeah. The real ghost. Ancestor. Yeah,
definitely a real person.
Yes.
So again, very confusing, and also kind of morphs what I may think be what my analysis will be later on. But That's again, rewatching it. It's very recent, but also still very. I don't want to say convoluted because that's kind of a mean thing to say, but at the same time,
I think it's yeah. I mean, convoluted has negative connotations,
Yes.
but I think it is convoluted and not in a bad way. I think it's convoluted in exactly the way that you want a really densely plotted psychological thriller to be.
But
Is circuitous a more flattering way to put it, or
I would say needlessly elaborate.
like needlessly elaborate as a movie, or like
As
the
a plot
the
to get
killer's
rid of your
plot?
wife.
Yeah, that was. I don't know. Like
But
you're.
I'll say this much though: I read the book synopsis, the full outline of it.
So that would be the French novel that this was based on, not the follow-up from the alternate perspective that you mentioned.
Yes, the what the screenplay was based off of. Well, to an extent, I guess Hitchcock read it, and whoever wrote the final version of the screenplay just went off of what Hitchcock said.
Right.
But what I predicted should have happened at the end, that would have felt better because you talked about the Hays Code messing with the end of this.
Right. So for
What I wanted as a better ending actually ended up was the book's ending, and I'm like, woo, 2 points.
yeah, so that detail about the Hays Code, there's a very it kind of feels tacked on in the final scene, the resolution to what happens, which is that okay, so Scotty has brought Judy back up to the same bell tower where the original murder cover-up took place.
For all we know, he has a prescription from his doctor to do this.
Right, yeah. One catharsis. Take as needed.
Yes. But only in even numbers.
Right. 2 catharses. Yeah, so he's confronting Judy, and they come to a resolution about the deceit and everything. And a nun from the nearby mission comes up and startles Judy so badly that she like leaps back out of the doorway over the edge and falls to her death, which is, I mean,
we don't see that. We see that some sort of propulsion or of her own making or not happened. Was it fear that made her go? Was it guilt that made her go? All I heard was...
Well, it wasn't Scotty shoving her, if that's what you're implying, but yeah, it was. Yeah, like I said, if you look at it literally, it seems a bit kind of like an afterthought, and might be one of like kind of the weakest plot points in the movie. And it is sort of known that it was necessary because of the Hays Code, that Judy, whatever her, motives and feelings might have been throughout the process, she was very much an accessory to murder. She was complicit in the real Madeline, who was completely innocent, getting killed. And, the studios and the Hays Code would not have been okay with her, not facing some sort of, well, are
you sure? Because if we go back to that, like, grand jury testimony or whatever scene, I think all she needs is like a public shaming of just like
that from that one smarmy judge.
Yes. Or whoever well, according to
you reacted very heavily to that character.
I just booed him in the middle, where it's just like, now remember, gentlemen, this has no bearing on the facts whatsoever, but let the record show this guy over here had an opportunity and did not do it. Not that that's part of the law. It's like watching early Law and Order, or even more recent Law and Order. I'm sorry, I've been watching old clips of Law and Order, and it's just like, oh my god, this is what justice is, and this is what I was rooting about.
Yeah,
no.
I love that, and maybe that's just a Hitchcock thing. It reminds me of the psychiatrist in like the final scene of Psycho. This character we haven't seen before, since that scene sort of like swooping in to sort of monologue about the applicable social norms. And then it's like, and justice is done, dust hands,
I don't know, but, I do appreciate the very, very early beginnings of just like, Your Honor, I don't think we need to go. I think I can speak for everyone here when I say suicide.
Yeah.
The jury is back, everyone. The jury is back.
I mean, I remember the first time I watched this movie, I was a little bit concerned about how much of this might get like bogged down in Scotty's like culpability for her death, and it was nice to just lay out like, he okay, so we're all in agreement. He's not criminally liable. He was an incompetent bodyguard, but this was going to happen anyway. It wasn't really his fault. So
well, no, he went on for like 8 bullet points though.
It was
even though testimony has come from his officer, even though her husband should have done this. Can we all just point out the fact that all of these men suck? All of them.
Well, so you're saying that mental health care wasn't as good as it should have been in 1958?
I mean,
Wow, yeah. I'm so glad we've come so far since then. Oy.
well, a little bit. Maybe a little bit. But I mean, they mentioned that a couple of times with, once again in the trivia, just like, oh, yes, this Carlotta, was that her name?
The ancestor?
The ancestor, yeah. It's just like, yep. So what happened is that was the mistress, and she had his baby, and he took the baby, and he threw her away. You know, men could do that back then.
Yeah.
Back then. And I'm just like, okay. Go back to selling books now.
I mean, men could do that back then without being publicly shamed for it, or like less. Oh, was that the implication? Or?
Should I use this as an opportunity to bring up Midge?
Sure.
So Midge, girl Friday, girl Saturday, girl visiting him, bringing him records, girl really, 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 really wants to be with him.
Poor thirsty Midge. That's what I called her, I think.
No. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't like that I'm putting all of the blame on her, because that's how the movie frames it. I
found Midge very sympathetic, but also she did kind of need to take a hint, you know. It wasn't like, this is still, you know, she has to take some responsibility for being turned down very respectfully, and you know.
But he needs to, like, go away.
I mean, it was set up as, like, you know, Scotty very badly needed a friend in the course of recuperating from his first trauma, the police colleague who died, and it's introduced as, like, you know, Midge is his ex-fiance, she's his closest platonic friend, he's, you know, relying on her to you know, kind of work his feelings out as he's trying to, you know, self-administer some exposure therapy to his fear of heights, and she, like, very clearly wants the relationship to be more than that. But does that mean it, you know, is it Scotty's responsibility to step back from being such a close friend of hers? I don't know. I feel like it, because Scotty definitely gets kind of, you know, cruelly indifferent to her, especially as he starts to fall in love with quote unquote Madeline later on.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I think that's what I'm fixating on.
I think both sides of that relationship kind of handled it badly. Like, you know, Midge, you know,
let's all agree they're 50% at fault. No,
I think they're very differently at fault. I think, you know,
they both have a version of responsibility, but
yeah, because Midge put herself in the position to be hurt by, you know, not backing off from Scotty when she should have, and, you know, it's not Scotty's fault that she got her heart broken, but, you know, once he started getting obsessed with Madeline, he got more and more indifferent to Midge's feelings, and he definitely, you know, could have been nicer about it too. So
I'm gonna go with the fact that the way he treated Judy. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna take the side that I don't like Scotty very much right now.
No, I don't either.
In his treatment of women.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I mean, it's so interesting because he's played by James Stewart, and he's, you know, got that, like, you know, nice guy thing going on, and how much is that kind of
nice guy thing or nice guy thing?
Good question. Mm-hmm. First one, then the other, kind of.
Oh, Lord, James Stewart, the first nice guy film. Probably not even close.
And then there was his character in Rope, but
that's different.
It's a quasi Nietzschean. We should be allowed to murder whoever we want, you know.
Oh wow! When you were doing that, I thought you were actually going to go into a Jimmy Stewart impression. Oh well.
No, I'll leave that to you. I kind of thought better of it at the last minute.
Right.
I don't think I'm very good at impressions, but
no, my impression would just be doing Dana Carvey's impression of Jimmy Stewart.
Well, you learn from the best.
Oh, there it is.
But yeah, no, I was looking at the way he was sort of like manhandling Judy in the last scene and thinking like, oh yeah, this is, you know, social mores at the time, because it's like he's, you know, clearly justified in being angry because, you know, she lied to him, she manipulated his feelings, she's an accessory to a murder, she is not a good person, Judy does not really deserve a whole lot of sympathy right now, but does that justify, you know, the way he's you know, being brutal with her? It's like, no, it's uncomfortable all around. I'm gonna go back a few more scenes and go with the whole, like, I don't want to wear the gray suit. Yeah. I don't want to wear I don't want my, okay, fine, I'll wear my hair. I believe I wrote down, like, if I do what you want, will you tell me you love me? Will you love me? No. If I do what you tell me,
will you love me?
Right, which is another great multi-layered scene, because is she like very understandably reacting as any sane woman would to being treated as a living doll, which is, you know, creepy and off-putting, and also the secret knowledge that the woman she's being made up to resemble is her own murder victim. So like it could also be guilt, a lot of guilt. To say nothing, I mean, the guilt of the real Madeline being dead, and the guilt of having kind of manipulated this guy, and the fact that he's kind of going off the deep end. She's kind of partially responsible for him being this amount of nuts in the first place. So, you know.
I'm going to use this very tense moment right now to ask.
Mm-hmm.
When did they fall in love?
I'm so glad you asked, and I hope you're not going to be too frustrated with my answer if I'm subverting your podcast. I don't think they did. Not really.
Are you sure?
Well, you know, it's interesting because
it's kind of amazing what they put up with for each other if they weren't.
But interesting point.
But I could agree with you.
I want to hear more about that. But you know, this movie was interesting because like they talk about being in love a good deal. They're rather liberal with using the word love out loud. Maybe, you know, I don't know if that era of cinema movies were like a little bit, you know, less cynical about that kind of thing, or maybe like what they couldn't show so much with on-screen intimacy, they kind of fall back on the dialogue to deliver the emotional punch.
And the musical stings.
Right. But I mean, yeah, this is a movie of deception. I think there's a good amount of self-deception going on here. And I think the label that the characters were, that they were putting the label love on, I think that was like obsession disguised as love for Scotty. And I think it was guilt disguised as love for Judy.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because when it was still Madeline,
mm-hmm.
and because it was still Madeline, quote unquote. So
he was in love with the persona of Madeline.
You're right, yeah. Right. So what I'm getting, and then the thing is, she was still playing Madeline at that time as well.
Yeah, so and you said, I mean, quick note about that. It really is interesting to see like how thick that layer of performance is, because like the difference between Judy being Madeline and Judy being herself is like a whole. You know, you hear those stories about like Marilyn Monroe turning her like actress persona on and off. It was something like that, where, you know, it's her, she's got like that like kind of transatlantic upper class accent, and the way she speaks is very like even and poised, and she always speaks kind of slowly, and like it comes off as like very emotionally reserved, almost icy. And then when you see
mildly possessed.
Yeah, and then when you see Judy just being herself, she has this like more Midwestern accent. She talks a little bit faster. Her whole emotional energy is different, and I mean, she's good at her job. She really does like kind of sell the impression of being a totally different person. And we also have to look at like, you know, she only kind of starts to let the mask crack a little bit in her last few scenes before she fakes her death and says something very cryptic right before she runs up the clock tower about, you know, it wasn't supposed to be this way. Mm-hmm. I think her accent starts to slip a little bit at that point too. But yeah, it does bear remembering that like Judy had gone to such lengths to create this whole character of her fake Madeline, and like that fake Madeline is the person that Scotty originally fell in love with. So we almost have to engage with that whole question on two levels. Actually, and then was he falling all over again in love with like the actual Judy when he got to know her in that way?
Extra points for Judy the second she opens the door and sees him. She's like, "Hi, what do you want?"
Oh, such a poker face.
Yeah.
I would have flipped out.
Whereas the reality of like that Jimmy Stewart sweating when he's really almost all the way up the tower, that's how I would have been in that scene.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, heights. And also that guy. The guy is back. Oh, how did he find me? I mean, hello. I'm trying. Well, hi. You said, you know, how much of that was obsession. I would say that there is this deep tie of Scotty and him protecting Madeline. Mm-hmm. He's looking at this woman who is probably, according to what his friend told him, a danger to herself. Mm-hmm. So I think he is in love with this image of this thing. When I say thing, I mean the image.
Right, the persona.
She is poised. She is delicate. She is any minute about to have all of that taken away if he doesn't do something. Mm-hmm. It's up to him. And I think that the fact that he did fail in the past, and he has this affliction.
The guilt over the police officer.
The guilt over the police officer, the fact that he can't do his job anymore, and he's wandering. And so it's like, oh, this is not only something that I can do, but also this is somebody who I can, doesn't help, isn't hurt that she's gorgeous and surrounded in just beauty in how she dresses and what she's surrounded by. San Francisco is very beautiful.
It is.
And surrounded by gorgeous artwork and, has a mysterious, backstory. And I think that he just decided to dive into that, like into the ocean at the same time. Like, I'm going to rescue you. And then I'm not.
Was that an impression?
No, that was me trying to have the listeners go like, no, he literally dove into the water to get her, and he dove into that whole thing. And I think you're right. They were throwing that out there, but it's just like he was clinging to her. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're right in that regard.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of a reciprocal, who's rescuing whom kind of. Yeah.
Well, no, I think more like who's anchoring whom. Mm-hmm. If you really think about it, because you said obsession. I think it's no. It's more about clinging to being a hero, as opposed to the failure who needs to be put back together. And which is not a failure, which they underlined. That was not his fault, even though he could have no.
So, like an attachment born of need, then, which is interesting because, like, when I've been on a few of your episodes in the past, I sometimes have to kind of like, break down which definition of love that we're using, because like, we talk about like, stable, lasting love, the kind of love that can prop up a marriage or a long-term relationship versus like, we don't have to be sticklers for like, oh, well, they're just infatuated. That's not really being in love. But
did you not listen to our mannequin episode? That's eternal. Like,
right.
Like when she turns into the statue. She cannot be broken except for with a sledgehammer. Anyways.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to engage in this cop-out. It was like, oh, they were just infatuated with the image or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that I guess maybe what I'm hearing from you is that is the question that this movie poses, is need enough to be in love?
What kind of need? Like cash? And I agree with you. Well, you mentioned it. I'm not sure if you stated it, but guilt. She has a lot of guilt because you watch her go through so much. Like, okay, you fell in love with. It was me, but it wasn't me. This is like This was like the worst. Oh God, there's all of these like teen movies where it's just like, he doesn't know that it's her on the other side of the text messages, if only he knew, something like that.
And she says it in her letter that Scotty was a victim.
Yes.
He was just a prop.
No matter what the coroner says, I'm never going to get over that. You were saying.
Yeah, but that Madeline was a victim and Scotty was a victim, and that he was just a prop in this elaborate setup to create the illusion that Madeline committed suicide. Mm-hmm. And she clearly, like we find out for a fact that she felt guilty about it afterward, and it was very easy to infer that she started feeling pretty guilty about it pretty early on. In fact, I'd kind of like to go back to the first scene where they actually speak to each other, which is after he pulls her out of the bay, because they've never actually met face to face before. The only reason he sort of like breaks his cover and, instead of just tailing her in secret is because she is apparently drowning and needs to be rescued. Oh, and by the way, this is only thinking about it this viewing. So what she was staging was that this false persona of Madeline goes into like a fugue state because of her, obsession with the ancestor, and jumps into the bay because her ancestor committed suicide. And when she's in the water, she's like completely catatonic. He pulls her out of the water. She's still catatonic. And it's not until he's already, taken her home and changed her out of her clothes that she wakes up. So was she pretending to be catatonic during that entire car ride and being like fully undressed and put into the bed as she's just like pretending to be unconscious the whole time?
I mean, her body could have gone into shock because the water was cold.
Is that how that works?
No, I'm trying to come up with
we're not medical experts.
I'm trying to come up with something plausible that has to go with the actual facts that I have to work with.
Yeah, added to I mean, I guess that's kind of like what passed for some of the erotic implications under the content codes of the time, that we kind of see her waking up in bed with bare shoulders because of course her her clothes were soaked in very cold water, and it's like, oh, he, undressed her and put her into his bed, but, presumably was as chivalrous as possible under the circumstances.
Just
and
like Casino Royale.
I'm just thinking she has to like be lying there pretending to be catatonic, allowing him to strip her naked, and man, that must have taken some commitment, or maybe really excited her. What do I know? So
I mean, I would have taken a nap.
You really can't sleep through anything.
I do love naps. Alrighty. So in the end,
that should not be taken to imply that I've undressed Diana in her sleep.
I don't know what to say about that, so I'm just going to move on to the next topic. When did we get divorced?
Is that going to cut?
Not now.
Okay.
In the end.
Yes.
Now what?
Well, Judy's dead, and we could.
Yep.
And I would personally feel fine with indulging a hypothetical alternate scenario where she didn't die, because you would not have to mentally delete a whole lot of runtime in order to like about 30 seconds off the end of the movie you could trim.
Yeah, but at the same time though, I think.
But yeah, no, it is canon, and it is, and as much as it comes across like a really half-baked concession to the Hays Code, it's also potentially very richly symbolic, because it's like she's startled by a nun. It's almost like this sort of symbol of morality coming in, and her guilt finally catching up to her.
I mean, nuns are scary.
Yeah, and I mean, I would read that as like, okay, even if she did escape, her guilt is always going to be creeping up on her from the shadows, just as that nun did, and it will ultimately destroy her, even if not literally. So, I would say, Judy is probably pretty much a destroyed person at that point. I mean, she has to live with the conscience of helping commit a murder for the rest of her life. How do you even come back from that?
Oh, so you're going with this whole 30 seconds less thing? And
well, no, that's just sort of like, if we were that's what I would think anyway. But if we want to, I mean, okay, before I move on, like, do you agree with what I'm saying about like the guilt of like just? I mean,
how okay, she goes along with this for him if she loves him out of guilt, if she loves him because she fell in love with him. I don't think she fell in love with him. I think she's been screwed over by all of the men in this scenario.
I mean, what even is the balance of how guilty she feels about Madeline versus how guilty she feels about Scotty?
Well,
like 60-40? Like...
Honestly, I think Madeline is easier for her to... Okay, granted, she looks at her in the mirror every day, but it's probably easier for her to feel worse about Scotty because she's seen the actual devastation in his face.
Right.
Well, at least now, especially now that he's come back. Well, okay, before and after, because she felt bad because she wanted to stop it, but Madeline was already dead.
And I mean, it might help her diffuse some responsibility that it was like only about helping Gavin get away with it. I think it's established that he had already broken her neck and just like brought her corpse up to the tower to throw it off. So
again, if she's in love with Scotty or if she has guilt about, I don't know. I don't even know anymore. What the point is that she's done some bad shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Maybe they should have replaced her scream with "I regret everything." The thing is, though, is that what doesn't help is that I think Scotty turned into this personification of everything that she was feeling in that moment too. So that's probably like one of the ultimates in. It's like nothing you can say can be as horrible as what I think about myself every day. No. Scotty was doing that and roughing her up a little bit as he was like shoving her up and just like, hey, you want to replay that thing you put me through?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Like it's such a dark catharsis. It's so much like him almost turning into I mean, I don't want to exaggerate and say like turning into a completely different character, but it's such a rage-fueled side. It's almost like it's...
I mean, he progressed the whole way.
Yeah. I mean,
he didn't turn. He progressed.
No, that's true. Yeah, that scene definitely went through a couple of distinct emotional beats, and it was really well acted.
He is the stairs in that tower. Slowly.
It's literally an escalation. Yeah,
and the way it just got squeezed more and more and more as you go up higher and higher and higher.
Right, and that's like and then there's that wonderful moment at the top where he just realizes that he's not experiencing any vertigo. He's essentially had that exact like extreme emotional stress that would supposedly cure him, and it's like he's cured his acrophobia and gained a whole new set of problems.
Yeah. Now he's killed his girlfriend. Oh, sorry, his living doll.
The nun killed his living doll.
The circumstances of her guilt catapulted her out of the stupid thing because the bell rang.
Yeah, which I think is probably a good time to come back to the canonical ending. So even if Judy is officially dead, what is the future for Scotty? And I don't think it's great. I mean, okay, so that is an odd number of plummetings on his record. So he's officially re-traumatized. But yeah, I mean, you can't like it'll be great that he doesn't get dizzy going up in high places anymore. But yeah, I mean, he's got a whole new set of baggage to work out. And
tons of baggage. I feel bad because Midge is gonna get him set back up, but she's not gonna stay.
Yeah,
she's gonna do that one last friend thing because he does not have friends.
No, yeah, he doesn't.
Yeah, he's gonna do the one last friend thing where she
Midge
says,
and Gavin. That was Midge is the good one in this.
Whoa, I mean, he does have the former boss that comes to his,
Oh yeah, man, yeah. If anyone is,
you know what? That's what I'm gonna do. Midge pieces out. And it's going to be the captain, gets him set up. I think he's just going to... Yeah, he's just going to be in a very soft chair for the rest of his probably very short life. I think he's just going to lose the will to take care of himself, and so they'll have to force feed him and stuff.
Oh yeah, or even that is a lot of talk and imagery of suicide in his immediate past, and yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, it's he could have like a whole new iteration to his guilt complex. I really like what you pointed out about like the sort of parallel between the guilt that Scotty's feeling for most of the movie over the not that he was responsible for it, but sort of like the guilt complex about the police officer who died trying to rescue him versus Judy's guilt about being part of this murder plot. And I'm trying to think what kind of like fresh new layer Scotty might have on top of that, because in the very last minutes before Judy falls and dies, he brought her up there to confront her about both halves of the plot, both her lying to him, but also her collaborating with Gavin to commit this crime. And at the last minute, he kind of relents. Like his love for Judy beats all that out. And the last thing that happens before the nun that comes in is that he's telling her he loves her and he's kissing her. So that's almost like, is that his sense of ethics failing at the last minute, deciding that his feelings for Judy override whatever culpability for the crimes she's committed? Was he himself on this very dark path to helping continue to cover up the murder of Madeline after the fact? Would he have also been culpable for that? And even with none of that actually coming to pass, maybe he has to live with the feeling that if Judy hadn't died, he might have gone so much more down that path. And I don't know. I'm a bit in the weeds here, but I mean, does that kind of parse for you? Or?
Well, the only thing is that I don't remember him kissing her at the end. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually going to say that was probably correct. I was too busy being mad at him.
It's unfortunate that there's so many details from the last scene that we can't really remember, because the movie really just does not give you any time for it to sink in. It has like zero denouement to it.
Right. And so what I'm going to go with is here's the thing. If he got clarity because he finally didn't have his fear of heights and vertigo problems anymore. Mm-hmm. And then all of that comes to pass. She clears her, she gives the story to him. That's her clearing her conscience and being, honest with him. But he found out anyway, so it's this whole thing. I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to say that because whatever happened to her, there's supposed to be like this weird implied, he's with her, they're together, and then the nun appears, mm-hmm. and then she Judy backs up. We see her back up though, right? But we don't actually see what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of off screen. It's very ambiguous visually.
So I'm gonna make something fit in my head for just an end here.
Oh, please do. I love good fanning.
He's back to where he is, but everything that's happened, she is complicit in this murder. And so, yeah, I'm just going to say that the only way that he can reconcile himself with the person that he's in love with versus the person who killed the person is for him to actually close the loop, and he pushed her. Because the only way that he can reconcile with this period is to just be done with all of it. And also, he has to be punished. This is him punishing himself. So he pushes her, he's punished, he has a witness in the nun. The nun is going to turn him in, loop is closed.
And he gets that same smarmy judge who's going to give like a 2-hour speech about how bad it is to push women out of windows.
Or you can make it a little bit more Hitchcockian. I don't know if this is true or not, but like, she did fall. It was an accident. But the nun thinks that he pushed him anyways, and she's going to testify that she saw him push him. Because that would be the ultimate punishment for him in the end. Clarity, accident, he not got away with, but all the guilt of just like, he did all these things wrong, but we cannot convict him. So what better way to end it than to have him be convicted for something that was an accident?
Wow. Congratulations on somehow making it even darker.
Yay!
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this. I believe that's how the original novel ended. That
in the original novel, he strangles her to death.
Right, in sort of a fit of rage, and
that's how it should have been.
Yeah, which I mean,
it's the only way to get closure, honey. Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm glad it's you saying that and bringing up all of the kind of weird implications of the gender imbalance and the violence. But
this is only
I felt uncomfortable watching him shove her up the stairs. So
yeah, no, I hated that. No, totally. But no, I agree. I do too. That's why I'm trying to make it.
Embrace the Hitchcock darkness.
You mean like the black and white?
Yeah, that too.
Okay. This was in color, right? I don't know. I can't remember anymore.
Oh, yes, it was in color. No, I want you to wear a gray suit, just like all the suits are gray.
Alrighty. Any more you want to throw in there?
Oh, I don't think I can top that.
Thank you. That is actually high praise, and I appreciate that comment. Although I will throw in that there is commentary that all of this is just him writing out his guilt as he's having his dying moments, because a lot of people think that he died when that cop fell off of the roof. They think that he died at the same time as well, and this is all.
Yeah. I mean, it does have kind of a suspicious amount of springing from his own guilt about how his own rescuer died in his place, and the sort of repeated themes of heights and stuff. So yeah, there's a very famous short story that I think the Wikipedia article says that interpretation is inspired by. Yeah. Where, like the entire last, spoiler alert from the 19th century, the entire last chapter of the book is like the guy's imagination as he's being hanged. It's An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge is the title, I believe. Oh, got it. Sorry, when you said it, when he's being hanged, honey, he wasn't hanging. He was hanging from the ceiling. No, well, I mean, not the ceiling, but the roof. I'll just say, and obviously, oh my God, he hung himself. And there's there's still some similarity there to support the theory, but right. Yeah. So, that's just, it was all a fever dream. Hitchcock has better twists than that. Does he though? Yes. I don't know. I've only seen a handful of his movies. And they're good, right? Okay. And so, like I said, I'm still a blank slate of sorts. Still trying to get a copy of Rebecca. So, okay. So that's all I wanted to say about the film. Yeah. Cool. Me too. Thanks for having me on. This was fun. Yeah. Thanks for picking a movie that's like considered to be one of the greatest of all time by many people. Well, not critics at the time, but and thank you for rewatching it with me, because if memory serves, I think you were a bit ambivalent about it the first time you watched it. It's not that you didn't enjoy it, but I think you maybe enjoyed it more this time. I was feeling a little dizzy when we watched it the first time. So this is a very personal movie on certain levels. So yes, San Francisco. She really is that bad. She's not exaggerating. Stop telling them the truth. All right. You can tell them about my phobias if it makes you feel better. No, because then I have the higher ground, and I'm dizzy again. Okay. Well, let's just say I would have rather been in the clock tower than falling into the bay, I guess. Sure. Okay. So,
tell us your thoughts about Vertigo. I'm still on my social media hiatus, but you can always email me at contact@heamcast.com. Ryan, is there anywhere that you want to send them?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. You can find me liking and retweeting everything from the official Happily Ever Aftermath Twitter feed. So I'll be on there when this episode drops.
Thanks for being a great guest, and thanks for being producer Ryan.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
All right. So until next time, may your aftermath be happy.